selection of quality products with choices for every budget. That's small savings every week, but add up to a summer that feels a whole lot easier. Redeem your points to save on groceries, online or in the Smith's app today.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
This message is brought to you by Smith.
Podcast Network. Now get ready for Strange Things with Joshua P. Warren.
Welcome to our podcast. Please be aware the thoughts and opinions expressed by the host are their thoughts and opinions only and do not reflect those of iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio, Coast to Coast AM, employees of Premier Networks, or their sponsors and associates. We would like to encourage you to do your own research and discover the subject matter for yourself.
Brand new mind-blowing content, news, exercises, and weird experiments you can do at home. And a lot more. On this edition of the show, Mothman, now seen in Florida, and Disclosure Truth. That's a tall order, isn't it? I know you're thinking that. Oh, come on, Mr. Warren. Disclosure Truth. You know, if you go to Starbucks, you order a tall. That's small. They call small tall. At least that's what I think. And then I think medium is grande, and then large is Trenta. I think that's what they told me. I don't go to Starbucks that often. When I do, I'm a simple man. I usually just get double espresso on ice, down that thing, give me a little bolt, a little jolt of late night energy. Maybe I'll put a little Splenda in there occasionally. But man, are you exhausted? Because I am. There's just too much going on right now. You know, Art Bell, who created Coast to Coast AM, he used to talk about this phenomenon called the quickening, where events are just happening so fast that, like, by the time you hear what I'm going to talk about, you know, it's already kind of old stuff, because it's just like things are happening at lightning speed. And when you hear that Mothman is showing up again, you really need to pay attention to that. I realize that there are people who are listening to this show for the first time, and you may not know who Mothman is, but let me tell you something. When Mothman starts showing up, something is going to happen. Let's see here. Mothman, okay, the original Mothman stories came from all these news reports. In American folklore, it says Mothman is the name given to a humanoid creature that was reportedly seen around Point Pleasant, West Virginia from November 15th of 1966 to December 15th of 1967. Despite its name, the original sightings of the creature described avian, or I guess that would be bird-like features. John Kill, he wrote the Mothman Prophecies. That's an amazing book if you've never read that, and it was turned into a film in 2002 starring Richard Gere. Mothman is this, you know, he's a dark winged, like they say, humanoid type figure that sometimes just occasionally appears, and then a lot of times right after a series of Mothman sightings, something dramatic happens, and often negative. In the case of the original Mothman, it was the collapse of the Silver Bridge, which was a huge disaster. Again, you can read about all that. I lived in Puerto Rico for years. And all these people in Puerto Rico, in rural areas of Puerto Rico, started to me they were seeing a Mothman type figure. And then right after that, Hurricane Maria hit, tore the island all to pieces. And then there were a number of earthquakes and political unrest. So, look, I am not a doomsdayer, but I do have a theory, though, and if you followed my work, you'll know what I'm about to say. I believe that sometimes there are transitions that happen in the universe, and right before it hits physically, you might get glimpses of it in the spiritual realm. So right as that charge is building up that makes your hair stand on end, right as that is about to happen, then our realm and the other realms sort of merge a little bit more. Thin places become thinner places, and we're able to see and interact with these beings. And it's a harbinger, it's a precursor to something major that's about to happen. And just because Mothman is showing up now in Florida, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that something bad is going to happen in Florida. But, I mean, if I were in Florida and I started seeing Mothman, I would be getting worried. And I love Florida. So here's what's going on. Lon Strickler, he's been doing a fantastic job of documenting phantoms and monsters for many, many years. And he has been a guest on Coast to Coast AM many times. I just listened to him recently. His website is called phantomsandmonsters.com. And I have corresponded with Lon a little bit. I don't know him personally, but I mean, I can tell you that I've always respected his work. And he seems to be one of those guys who just sort of takes like an objective point of view and just documents reports that come in. Because it's like, you know, if you see Mothman, who you gonna call, right? It's that thing. You're not gonna call the police department and say, "Oh, I guess people do that," but no. Ultimately, you're gonna end up probably telling Lon Strickler about it. Phantomsandmonsters.com, and he's been getting a lot of reports lately. He said I could read this to you, so here we go. Winged humanoid sightings surge in Pasco County, Florida, near Zephyr Hills and US 301. I had never heard of Zephyr Hills before, but apparently, just looking it up online, it looks like it's a little bit north of Tampa, Florida. I've been to Tampa. And here's what he wrote. Over the past several months, I have received 3 separate reports of winged humanoids in Pasco County, Florida, centered near Zephyr Hills and the dark rural stretches of US 301 and Route 98. The descriptions are strikingly similar to the Chicago winged humanoid encounters that I have documented for years. What makes this cluster stand out is the consistency in body structure, wingspan, and behavior, as well as the presence of deer carcasses along the roadway. Is this an isolated regional anomaly, or are we witnessing the expansion of a wider pattern that has quietly been unfolding across the country? Good question. He goes on to write, here's the first road encounter. He said, in September of 2017, I was contacted by AP. I guess those are the initials of the person to preserve privacy. Contacted by AP, a delivery driver working a nighttime route between Clearwater, Port Richey, Brooksville, and Zephyr Hills. On a night he was off duty, another driver covered his route, and while traveling between the 3rd and 4th stop near Zephyr Hills at approximately 3:30 a.m. along, sometimes I say route, sometimes I say route, it just depends. I'm going to say route 98 near its junction with US 301. The driver observed something extraordinary. The road was dark, bordered by trees and lacking streetlights. About 15 feet off the ground, beside a tree, he saw what initially appeared to be a dark mass suspended in midair. And as he approached, he realized it resembled a humanoid figure in a cannonball position, tightly curled and motionless. As he closed the distance, the figure suddenly unraveled. It extended long, human-like legs and unfurled massive bat-like wings. The being was dark in color, roughly 5 to 6 feet tall, extremely thin, and humanoid in appearance. Before the driver could fully process what he was seeing, the creature accelerated toward his truck at what he described as fighter jet speed. The movement was so fast and unnatural that it nearly caused him to lose control of the vehicle and crash into a ditch. He never got a clear look at the face. Fear overwhelmed him. Approximately half a mile before the sighting, he had passed 2 separate piles of deer carcasses. Like the story to me by phone, he emphasized how visibly shaken the witness became as he recounted the event. He described the being as resembling a skinny gargoyle with a wingspan of at least 12 feet. That's just the beginning of this. When we come back, I'm going to tell you about some of the other sightings. And then, we keep hearing, whoa, we're going to get disclosure, right? President Trump says, I'm ordering all the UAP and UFO files to be released. Well, I'll give you my opinion on that, and we're just gonna get into a lot. Hey, do you like this show? If so, do me a favor, support it. Go to JoshuaPWarren.com. On the homepage, you'll see where you can put your email address in there and sign up for my free and spam-free e-newsletter. And when you do that, you will immediately receive an automated email from me with some free online goodies that will start helping you make your life more magical. And also check out the Curiosity Shop. You're going to find things there that you won't find anywhere else in the world. JoshuaPWarren.com. I am Joshua P. Warren, and you are listening to Strange Things on the iHeart Radio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network, and I will be right back.
This message is brought to you by Smiths. Listening to podcasts about improving your life means you care about how you show up every day. You know small, consistent choices can make a real difference. And with Smiths, you can plan ahead by stocking your kitchen with fresh ingredients and everyday essentials, so the small choices you make feel consistent from the start and stay easy all day long. Order online and pick up groceries at your local Smiths. Smiths. Fresh for everyone.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes. Be slow when network is busy. See terms.
Working force professionals in the U.S. plant more than they harvest, while also caring for water, wildlife, and more. It's how we grow a sustainable future. Learn more at workingforestinitiative.com.
This is Charity Lawson from Bachelor Happy Hour.
Charity, I was thinking about this the other day. What's something that you'll always say yes to?
That's easy. Seeing my friends, last minute girls trip, basically making memories you'll talk about for years.
Same. And somehow every one of these memories comes with something to plan.
That's so true.
That's why Klarna stands out. It's about smarter tools that help you manage your money without taking away from the moments that matter.
Exactly. With flexible ways to pay, cashback that builds automatically, and everything in one place, Klarna helps you feel more confident making everyday money decisions.
Because when you have the right tools, everything feels more manageable.
Download the Klarna app today or visit Klarna.com to learn more.
California resident loans made or arranged pursuant to California Finance Law License, NMLS number 1353190. Klarna balance account required to be eligible for cashback points. Limitations, terms, and conditions apply.
Every week, the Snap Judgment Podcast drops you inside someone's biggest decision. The kind of decision you can only make once. With everything on the line, what do you believe? What do you want? And what would you risk to get it? Find out. Snap Judgment. New episodes every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to Strange Things on the iHeart Radio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I am your host, the Wizard of Weird, Joshua P. Warren, beaming into your wormhole brain from my studio in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, where every day is golden and every night is silver. Agitato Zume. You know, my wife, Lauren, and I have been together for almost 30 years, and we just recently celebrated our wedding anniversary. Lauren is a great artist, and she has helped me tremendously over the years with my products and inventions. And so it was kind of funny because for our anniversary, I came downstairs and she had a little gift wrapped package for me. I wasn't expecting that because, you know, after all these years, I mean, I've kind of like bought everything I want already. She made a little shadow box for me And it's just like, it's a little black box with kind of like a clear acrylic front, and inside of it is a little Mothman. And Mothman is standing on a snowy surface, and there's grass, there's a couple of trees next to him, and in the background she actually drew part of the I guess like the TNT area where Mothman was often seen. It's really cool. My main company is called Shadowbox Enterprises, and some people say, do you make shadow boxes? And not exactly. I mean, I fell in love with shadow boxes when I was a kid, and because I like making sort of your own little world. And then later I kind of thought, well, this kind of applies to everything that you do when you get into the arts. You start writing books or making TV shows or movies. You're kind of creating your own little world. And so to me, Shadowbox Enterprises is a very symbolic thing. And so that shows you how into Mothman that I am, that my wife would make something like that for me as a gift. And so this is obviously something that I will treasure and will go into a place of great esteem. So yes, it's one thing to see Mothman in your cute little shadow box. That doesn't mean you want to see something like Mothman in person. Let's go back to what we have reported from phantomsandmonsters.com by Lon Strickler. Second road sighting. Weeks later, AP contacted me again. A different driver covering the same route reported seeing the same creature in nearly the same location. This time the sighting occurred along US 301, the darker and longer roadway that Route 98 feeds into. The witness described the being as approximately 6 feet tall, dark gray in color, extremely thin, and possessing a large wingspan. He noted something unusual about the body structure. It appeared segmented, similar to an insect, with distinct thorax and abdomen proportions. The creature flew across the road from right to left at incredible speed, and the velocity made it difficult to clearly define its facial features or finer details. Again, deer were observed in abundance along the highway or the roadway. The location, morphology, and behavior closely matched those in the first report. 2 independent drivers, same corridor, same approximate physical characteristics. And then we move on to this one, the residential encounter. On February 3rd, 2018, I received a phone call from a Zephyr Hills resident describing a more personal and disturbing encounter at their home. 4 weeks prior to the sighting, the family heard scratching sounds inside the walls, rapid, heavy footsteps on the roof, and fluttering wing-like noises. A cement block near the base of the home had been moved out of place. The disturbances occurred primarily at night. And during this period, the family also observed unusual aerial lights in the sky. They described multiple objects moving at speeds and angles inconsistent with those of conventional aircraft, darting along jagged trajectories. One evening, the witness's son called out urgently from the bathroom. The witness rushed to the window. From outside came a sound as if something had stretched upward along the wall. A dark mass partially covered the window, and then it rose. The witness saw enormous wings extend upward and each approximately 5 feet long. Only the back of the head was visible, blackish in color. The being was lifted quickly and silently away from the house and disappeared into the night. The fear expressed during the telephone call was palpable. The family had attempted spiritual cleansing rituals prior to contacting me, uncertain whether the phenomenon was demonic, spiritual, or physical in nature. Notably, this residence is just south of the earlier roadway sightings. Goes on to say, in terms of commentary, patterns observed, 3 reports within the same regional corridor: consistent morphology, dark coloration, extremely thin body, human-like legs, large bat-like wings, height range 5 to 6 feet, rapid flight capability. 2 roadway sightings near 301 and 98, dark rural corridors bordered by forest. Both included deer presence or carcasses nearby. The residential case introduces auditory disturbances, rooftop movement, and proximity behavior rather than a brief roadside pass. Emotional tone. Each witness expressed genuine fear. Drivers reported near loss of vehicle control due to shock. The homeowner expressed distress and concern for personal safety. There was no tone of exaggeration or attention seeking. Goes on to say, Florida has a history of high strangeness, anomalous lights, et cetera, et cetera. Possible theories include an unknown biological species, an ultra-terrestrial entity operating in liminal spaces, an interdimensional life form intersecting physical reality, or a phenomenon tied to environmental corridors such as wildlife migration zones. So look, these are examples of this thing being seen. And you know what? One thing that's interesting is that sometimes, in fact, I think often, when people describe seeing a Mothman type entity, yes, it has wings, but it's not actually flapping its wings when it flies. So it's almost like that the wings are not necessary for it to move aerodynamically within our atmosphere. And it's kind of interesting because I recently came across some information about wingspan, and one thing I saw was some trivia, like how big would your wings need to be as a human being? Let's say you're a 5 to 6 foot tall, average sized human being. How big would your wings need to be in order for you to effectively and efficiently fly just by flapping your wings like a bird? And apparently it's about 5 meters, or we'll say, 16 feet per wing at least. Okay, so again, that's like 5 meters per wing or 16 feet per wing at least in order for you to start flapping your wings and flying effectively. And usually in these Mothman encounters, I don't hear about Mothman having wings that big. And again, a lot of times there's no flapping even involved. So, either we can just blow this totally off and say it's a bunch of bunk. I come from Buncombe County, North Carolina, and that's where the word bunk comes from, so I'm familiar with it. It could be a bunch of bunk, but if it's not, well then, maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something to the interdimensional aspect of it. In other words, we're not talking about some kind of a big owl or, not like a normal biological organism. It would have to be some kind of an interdimensional thing, I guess. And now we have the president saying, "Oh, we're gonna release the files." Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Here's what I think. I believe when the president says, I've ordered everybody to release the information. Well, look, we're up on a break. When we come back, I'm going to give you my opinion on that. And, I'm a guy who's been studying this stuff my whole life. And I'm just going to tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. And then there's also, we're going back to the moon. Why are we doing that? Is there a connection? Well, I have some interesting information for you about the moon and I don't know. I just have a bunch of stuff here. I have a little oxygen tank. I've been experimenting to see if I can breathe a lot of oxygen and have an amazing experience. I'll tell you about that when we come back. I'm Joshua P. Warren. You're listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I'll be back after these important messages.
Working force professionals in the U.S. plant more than they harvest, while also caring for water, wildlife, and more. It's how we grow a sustainable future. Learn more at workingforestsinitiative.com.
This is Charity Lawson from Bachelor Happy Hour.
Charity, I was thinking about this the other day. What's something that you'll always say yes to?
That's easy. Seeing my friends, last minute girls trip, basically making memories you'll talk about for years.
Same. And somehow every one of these memories comes with something to plan.
That's so true.
That's why Klarna stands out. It's about smarter tools that help you manage your money without taking away from the moments that matter.
Exactly. With flexible ways to pay, cashback that builds automatically, and everything in one place, Klarna helps you feel more confident making everyday money decisions.
Because when you have the right tools, everything feels more manageable.
Download the Klarna app today or visit Klarna.com to learn more.
California resident loans made or arranged pursuant to California Finance Law License, NMLS number 1353190. Klarna balance account required to be eligible for cashback points. Limitations, terms, and conditions apply.
I'm Glenn Washington. This is Snap Judgment from KQED. When everything is falling apart, what do? Hurricane Helene shut everything down. No roads, no cars, no way through. But his daughter was getting married. And somehow, some way, he was going to walk her down that aisle. All systems down. A new Snap Judgment miniseries from KQED, wherever you get your podcasts.
Bite into a stacked sandwich made with Hero Bread or a fully loaded bagel. And the only thing you'll think is delicious. You won't think it's up to 19 grams of protein, but it is. You wouldn't believe it has 11 to 32 grams of fiber, but it does. Hero Bread makes loaves, buns, tortillas, bagels, and noodles packed with taste, but without all the net carbs. We're talking 0 to 5 grams net carbs per serving. With Hero Bread, there are no compromises, just flavor. There's none of the stiff baked goods you'd expect from better-for-you brands. There's just the soft, fluffy bread you crave. Plus, small batch drops of indulgent favorites, like the popular 2-gram net carb Hero Croissant and 3-gram net carb Hero Pain au Chocolat. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code IHEART at checkout. That's code IHEART at HERO.co. All figures per serving of Hero Bread. See nutrition facts on hero.co.
At Ross, you'll find everything your kids need when they go back to school. From fashion to school supplies to dorm room decor, Ross has it all. Because it isn't just the first day of school for them, it's a new year, a new look, and endless possibilities. When they walk back through those school doors, they're a different kid than the one who walked out months ago, ready for anything. Back to school starts at Ross. Find your nearest Ross at rossstores.com.
Welcome back to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I am your host, Joshua P. Warren, and this is the show where the unusual becomes usual. I want to definitely thank Lon Strickler for giving me permission to read to you his latest report on these winged humanoids, phantoms and A-N-D, monsters.com. Great website. He's been doing this a long time. And right now, I mean, people are opening their minds more than ever because that we finally have individuals in government saying, hey, maybe we should just sort of like disclose some of what's been happening here with all these weird things flying around. Here's the catch-22. So let's say that I'm just crazy and you're just crazy and there are no aliens and there are no interdimensional beings and we're just fooling ourselves. It just doesn't exist. So if that's the case, well then, if they're not here, well then there is nothing to report. On the other hand, if they are here, then they very well may be in control of this whole situation. And so it will not be disclosed unless they want it to be disclosed. I mean, don't think that our president or whoever, presidents come and go, don't think that the president is equal to them. Plus, nobody believes politicians anyway, right? I mean, every time a politician says something, if you agree with it, you can be like, yeah. But if you don't, you can say, oh, it's part of a conspiracy. It's part of a psyop. I mean, this is, confirmation bias, I guess, where humans have a tendency to pick and choose what they want to believe. So even if the president came out and said, there are aliens here right now, there are many of you who would say, well, I don't believe it because I don't believe anything, a politician says. So again, let's go over the conundrum that we have here. This is the disclosure catch-22, in my opinion, after studying this stuff for most of my life. If they're not here, there's nothing to report, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if they are here, then they are probably in control of this whole experience, and it will not be disclosed unless they want it to be disclosed. I believe that they are here, and they've always been here as long as you and I have been here. And the main reason I believe that is because that scientists say that I am more closely related to a chimpanzee than anything else. And I'm like, really? Something doesn't feel right about that. I can do a lot of things a chimpanzee can't do. And I mean, a lot of things. And so there's something fishy about saying that my closest relative is a chimpanzee. We're going to the moon. Chimpanzees, they don't even have hang gliders. Why are we going back to the moon? I was listening to a guest recently on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, and she was talking about the philosophy of human senses, and she said, when Neil Armstrong went to the moon, he stepped onto the moon, and he said, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And she said, you know what? There is no sound on the moon. So when he said that, nobody could have even heard it on the moon. We got to hear it here on Earth, though. Now, think about that. What does that mean? I don't know! What the hell you talk about, Joe Bob? Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's an homage. What does that mean? I think what she was saying is like seriously, she's talking about internal reality versus external reality. So there is no sound on the moon. So when he was up there, he could have, I guess, taken his helmet off or something and said that he would have died if he'd done that. But anyway, but there's no sound. It's about the fact that humans are more interconnected, I think, than we even realize that we are. That space is just kind of dead and silent and cold. And we create this whole thing that we consider reality. William Shatner said something along those lines when he went up into space. And he said, it's just cold and dead. It's just cold, dead out there. Maybe this is why aliens are telepathic. I believe she brought that up. Maybe aliens are telepathic because if in most of the universe, you can't communicate using sound waves because the atmosphere is not there. And so aliens may have evolved into telepathic beings because they're transmitting things directly. Voyager 1, the spacecraft Voyager 1 was launched in 1977. That's almost 50 years ago, with less computing power than a digital watch. And it is now 15 billion miles away and still talking to us. That comes from NASA's James Webb Space Telescope Facebook page. Let me repeat that. Voyager 1 was launched in 1977 into the void. Spaceship created by humans, put into space. With less computing power than a digital watch, it's 15 billion miles away and still talking to us. And yet here we are trying to figure out how to get people back on the moon. I don't know, man. There's some stuff that just doesn't add up. Am I right or am I right? Human beings, though, going into space. The other day I was, I got my scuba diving certification when I was, I think 19 years old. And let's see here. I was reading the other day about the longest time that a human has held his or her breath underwater. What do you think it is? Take a guess. Just take a guess. Okay, here's the answer. The longest voluntary breath hold underwater is 29 minutes and 3 seconds. Now, they do put in parentheses, this was somewhat oxygen assisted, because this guy who did it, he was from Croatia. He did it in June of 2025. He breathed pure oxygen for 10 minutes, and then he submerged. And they said that allowed him to stay underwater for 29 minutes and 3 seconds, longer than even a dolphin. And I was like, what? 29 minutes? I was like, I gotta start breathing some more oxygen. I don't need to, I don't think, but I remember Rocky Mountains, and